I'm Ron Gallagher at Maximum Velocity Physical Therapy, and you're listening to HYPERSPEED Radio. You don't have to live in pain, whether you're running, swimming, playing a team sport, or just everyday fitness. We bridge a gap between medicine and strength and conditioning to help you break through at MVPT. What up? Coming to you live from Las Vegas. This is Ron Gallagher at HYPERSPEED Radio, episode 14. It is still too hot in Las Vegas. As I was driving here, I was wondering why we put up with this heat. But I'm here today with Madeline DeAngelo, the professor of movement,
back again,
the head coach at Icebox Strength, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me back. Third time's the charm.
Third time's the charm. The interview Ron episode is getting some traction.
Oh, is it out?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know. Oh.
Thanks a lot.
Anyway, it's been thank you so much for having me.
God, play along.
Damn. Sold you out immediately. 30 seconds into the podcast.
We're not even a minute in.
Okay, well, it's definitely going to go viral, so that joke's going to age well.
Totally getting traction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Most popular episode yet, actually.
Most
statistics show.
Yet. Yeah. So
yeah.
So I wanted to bring Madeline back to the show because she has lots to offer in many different fitness realms. But today I wanted to pick her brain about females and training. Because I feel like coaching men and coaching women are different. Would you agree?
What makes you feel that way?
Don't answer a question with a question. Who told you that? I have always taken the approach that coaching women is a little more skilled than coaching men. I feel like if you tell a man to put his head through that door, he will. If his motivation is high enough, you pretty much just have to lead them in the right direction and they'll do whatever you tell them to do. Females, on the other hand, require a bit of a skillful approach to the words you choose. And they ask a lot more whys and hows. And if you just try to lead them the same way you lead men, you'll chase your tail. That's been my experience.
Okay, follow-up question to the question I answered with a question. Which of those two categories do you put like my performance with you in?
Like you as a patient?
Yeah.
Oh, I would say it's a percentage.
What's the percentage?
60.
There's no wrong answer.
60% as a woman, 40% as a man.
Okay, that's pretty. Would you say that percentage system is like a tool that you could use across the board when you're gauging patients? Of like, most patients are a certain percentage willing to put their head through the wall, and
yeah, I suppose that's true.
Yeah, I mean, when you say the descriptions of the two different types, I mean, when I think of myself as like an athlete, especially an athlete seeking treatment or coaching, I think I'm the type to just, if it's somebody I trust what they're telling me to do, I'll just put my head down and do it. I don't know, maybe too hard. I would say that like most of my issues in my athletic performance history have come from going too hard rather than not hard enough.
Yeah. I mean,
what about, would you say the average reason that a patient comes into your clinic is the same, whether they're male or female? An injury due to stress? No, not the same.
No, I would say it's super wide variety.
Can't put any categories or like a wide variety between your male patients and your female patients, like a big
I would say just generally speaking, across the board. I mean, being able to It's okay. We might have a crying baby in the next one, so that's probably nothing.
No, it's fine. I just dropped my headphones, guys. That's okay.
It's all good. We're working through the kinks this morning. Yeah, so I would say that generally speaking across the board, it's really wide variety. And one of the things I struggled with in the first couple of years of my career was to be able to identify certain archetypes of people and educate and coach to that archetype.
That's true. I agree with that. And those archetypes, I would say, are not necessarily, I don't know if, gender is necessarily one of the main components in my experience. I mean, I think that most of I wouldn't say that I treat my female clients much differently than my male clients. I would say I approach just about everybody the same. My experience and ruminations and meditations come from my experience as a female trainer or as somebody trying to tell somebody what to do from a female perspective.
Right.
And
because that's what I'm thinking about right now. It's maybe that's my bias because I'm a man coaching a woman or.
Right.
Because.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a certain element of symmetry. I was having this conversation recently with Scary Larry, my dad. There was a time, especially
Shout out to Scary Larry.
Back when I was a troubled youth going through the motions of figuring life out. My dad he never really gave direct answers, which I think I was thinking about this recently. Maybe one of the best things he could have done, because what it taught me to do was figure it out for myself, which.
He just was a sounding board.
He was a sounding board, and he would guide me in the right direction without saying, do this, unless I said, should I do this? And then he would,
Oh, if you pinned him down.
But yeah, but I mean, but that was a good thing, because what it taught me to do was problem solve for myself or think critically or try to solve the problem without just, I mean, there's lots of times even in my life now where I'm thinking of something and I'm I wish I could just Google this question. What do I do with my life? ?
Right.
Enter. Google, you tell me.
Right.
I don't know.
Somebody tell me how to do it.
But my dad always encouraged me to kind of think for myself anyway. So when I was a troubled youth, he gave me the only guidance he would give me on what I should think about was the word symmetry. I should think about symmetry in my life. So how I would apply that here is, if we take a plane in the middle and you have, your bias or your experience or whatever over here, then it only stands to reason that there's another side of that spectrum right here. And so, one person's perspective is this way and another person's is this way, and somewhere here in the middle is where the truth really lies. It's a very roundabout way of getting to the point, but I think it's been I think I'm best at handling it now than ever, with just some of the stereotypical things that you would think that you would see, you see. These, let's just talk in full shit talking stereotypes. You get a high school athlete, a dude who was kind of good at something in high school. Mm-hmm. And hasn't really done a whole lot since, and probably has a couple things that bug him because he hasn't been to Ron Gallagher at Max Velocity PT yet, and so he hasn't been red pilled.
Shout out to Ron.
So I would say, if I was speaking stereotypically, he has too much of a. There a lot of times there's an ego at play, or there's they wouldn't think that I would know what they were talking about, or they don't want to listen to me, or maybe it's anybody else. I mean, a lot of times I really try not to take anything personally when I'm training anybody. It never, in my opinion, I mean, I try to evaluate where I can improve always, but I never let something like somebody not wanting to listen to me or pushing back or whatever get to me or take that personally or think it's because I'm a woman or it's because I'm this. Right. It's because nothing. It's because this dude did sports in high school and thinks he's the shit. And probably...
So you can recognize that it has more to do with him than you.
Right. And so I really try to apply that when I'm in front of people. And so I hesitate towards just blaming it. Well, this dude is misogynistic and hates women trainers.
Right.
And although that's an interesting flip side where I have experienced where I would say, here I am in front of you, really working hard, you can see evidence that I'm working hard, and the fact that like I'm more ripped than a normal girl, or like you see me working out, or I have the best time on the board, or whatever it was. Like,
Right.
I had what, in my opinion, was evidence that I knew what I was talking about. But some, and not just guys, but maybe predominantly guys, would rather listen to like just any dude for any reason. And maybe it just felt like that in my head, or maybe there's some validity to it, or maybe there's some truth in the middle. But dudes who, in my opinion, didn't really look like, there was no evidence that they would know what they were talking about or care to apply it in their lives.
Right.
And so that was like kind of frustrating. But again, I mean, for everybody that you have that's like that doesn't want to listen, or that pushes back, or whatever, you have somebody who will run their head into the wall if you tell them what to do. So I find that it's been pretty balanced. I think, I'm maybe, I don't know, I'm trying to think of my like roster, and I would say it's evenly divided between men and women, and service one more predominantly than the other. Which is kind of cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. I find that my training style, when I'm telling somebody else what to do, does not really change, whether it's, a guy or a girl that I'm working with. Everybody has different goals.
Right.
And so I try to tailor to that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do you have the flip side of that coin?
100%.
Well, let's hear it.
And I'm like really interested in that because, my training has a lot to do with, this super official veil of being a medical practitioner, and being inappropriate with a man and a woman, a man as a clinician and female as a patient is always super evident in my head. So, a patient, not too long ago gave me the feedback that there's no creepy factor with me. And I'm like, well, yeah, because that's super on purpose.
I'm usually a big old creep behind this facade. No, I'm just kidding, everyone. He's not.
Where I stand and how I talk and where I touch and when I touch.
Yeah.
Those are all very, very
anytime
calculated.
I've ever been treated with you, that has never even crossed my mind. I've never felt anything other than safe.
Yeah. And, it's taken me years to develop that routine of, making sure that when there is a woman on the table that, you handle yourself a very different way. So I would say, my mindset with, like one of my favorite patients, and unfortunately I don't get that much anymore.
Is it me?
Is a old, crotchety, mean ass old man.
Love it.
And the reason is because they walk in like a curmudgeon, they're just, mad at the world. And then very, very quickly I figure out a way to make them soften up and be funny. And they always have such great stories. But like, it took me a long time to talk to him the same way I would talk to you, or the same way I would talk to, a 12-year-old girl. Like those are all very different archetypal type people.
Totally.
And I feel like the initial way that I address them is different, and it whittles down to who I am, trying to get to know who they are, and eventually those walls come down. But it's taken some time to be able to do that.
Totally. And I think, a couple follow-up questions to that. Number one, I would imagine in this case, maybe I'm wrong, that you would handle a mean-ass, old, crotchety lady probably in a fairly similar manner. Like the archetype there is old, mean, crotchety, right? Or is that different or wrong? I could be wrong.
It's definitely different.
It's different.
So in that case, I just smile a little more. And
Well, does she still walk out a little taller?
Yeah.
Okay, well.
I mean, I compliment her. And,
Are you complimenting the guy?
No.
What are you
not
saying
at
to
all.
him?
Most
Let's
of
role
the
play. I'm the mean old guy. I'm walking.
Most of the time, I just use humor with him.
Okay.
With her, I'm going to be, a little more honestly flirty.
He knows what works, people.
And that's how you
He
soften her
knows
up.
how to make the old ladies smile.
Yes.
Okay, I love it. Well, that's interesting. And so him, you're going to what? Like poke fun at him or like trash talk or
Yeah. Yeah, talk shit, really.
I love it.
And he's going to eat it up.
Have
and-
you
and it
ever
took
tried
me-
talking shit to your female clients?
No. Treat them with I always take the approach that this is my friend's mom. I wouldn't talk shit to
Every
my
woman in the world is your friend's mom.
I know, but like this is actually my friend's mom. I'm not going to talk shit to her. I'm going to make her smile. I'm going to figure out a way to make her smile.
Okay. I don't know what to do with that.
You asked.
I like to talk shit to everybody. Maybe I'm in a privileged position of being female, and women aren't going to slap me if I talk shit. Would that be mean though? I don't know. I don't know.
Well,
this is what I mean. This is a whole gender conversation.
The whole reason why I wanted to bring this up is because I see a change in the people that you treat or train, in the way that they treat you.
Okay,
And
elaborate on this.
And your stance with your female clients, at least from my perception,
I love it. Tell me.
is that they look up to you and that you're doing something that they want to do. You're looking away. They want to look like you can lead them way better than I ever could. And then the men are just taking advantage of the fact that they have a knowledgeable, experienced, good trainer, and they'll put their head through the wall for you. But I see a different behavior in the way that they interact with you. And I find that profoundly interesting, which is why I keep trying to get you to talk about this.
I guess it's not something that I've necessarily noticed. I'm humbled and flattered that women or anybody would look up to me and want to emulate, walk my walk type of thing. I'm very proud and humbled by that. I think that I have some, maybe not as many, and maybe not that I work, like some of my online clients, I have a couple that come to mind that I think, I don't know about, like, it's different, right? Because a woman might look at me and say, like, I want to be just, that's tough. Like, I want to be just like her. But I think that some of what we talked in the past about, I try to come from a perspective first and foremost about like mindset and where like getting your head in the position that you can achieve whatever goal it is that you have. And a lot of times, fitness just happens to be like, in most instances, like a guaranteed way to kickstart a productive, happy, healthy, rewarding, stimulating life. And so that just happens to be like the most accessible avenue. And it has all the Stoics and everybody, old presidents included this type of like regime in their daily habits. So it's worthwhile and it gets people moving in that direction. And so from my perspective, approaching everything from like the mindset point of view, everybody has a mind. So getting each individual person's mindset, how it needs to go, maybe presents differently. Like we've talked about, there's different archetypes. So people are going to respond differently. But I haven't noticed from the inside, my clients necessarily interacting with me differently. I feel like it's mostly the same. I think that I get the same amount of like questions from both sides, the same amount of like joking around or just socializing. It's super interesting. I would say most of my like experience comes from like the coaching perspective of being in like the male dominated industry in a sense. And it's also interesting because like then I would say like if you think about the female side of fitness, like the first place my mind goes is like the Instagram influencer. I feel like
Right.
that's the female-dominated fitness field, or maybe it's not dominated. I don't really know how many guys follow other
You
guys
feel like
on
you're
Instagram.
fighting that?
I wouldn't say fighting it. I just think that's not really my vein. I don't know. And it comes down to, it's a whole nother conversation, which is a little bit intertwined with this, which is like the commodification of your body, like looking the way I want to look. And if you compare that with like, or looking the way I look rather. And if you compare that with like my earlier reference to me feeling like I present as somebody who knows what they're talking about, and then watching somebody listen to somebody who clearly doesn't present like they know what they're talking about. And so that's like an interesting dynamic as a woman to like kind of field here, because women are, I feel, I kind of resist the whole being looked at thing. Now, especially, I feel like I'm at a point in my coaching now. I'm probably the most modest I've ever been in the way that I like dress and everything for the most part. I don't feel like I don't know. I just cover up, especially in the gym. It's like a very strange turn that I would not have foreseen everything taking, but I'm finding it to be very empowering. So it's like as opposed to, and I'm not going against, but I mean, Instagram fitness models should do what they're doing. I mean,
Right.
cool.
Right.
But it's like, even like I'm always doing the work. I mean, you see me sometimes working out, whether it's like with the class or by myself or whatever. So the work is being done. But I got to a point where like I was not like really feeling like I would rather be covered up, and I would rather, like, I already know that I know everything that a person would need. I know that if somebody needs a coach, I can help them to whatever it is that they want to do. Physically or even in their life, I'm pretty confident that I can help somebody achieve a goal.
Right.
And I don't feel like I need to showcase my body to do that, or to prove that, or to have people believe that I can do that.
Right.
And it's actually been sometimes my mom really hates the way I dress and all the like oversized clothes, and she would call it schlumpy sometimes, just like, but as a female trainer, I think that's been like the biggest change that I've made recently that I like really am kind of loving. I wouldn't have seen it coming. I mean,
I have to tone it down because if I don't, I get too much attention. Is that it? No,
I just
kidding.
mean that I
No,
don't want that to be the thing that people are noticing, or something that anybody
Right.
is distracted by.
Right. No, I'm poking fun at that, but
Yeah, I mean, go ahead. And I will admit too that
no, it's respectable
yeah,
because you could be an influencer if you wanted to be.
it's nice.
But
Thank
you
you.
but you choose to be a good coach.
The two are not mutually exclusive. I would be careful about. I don't like to cast. You could be an Instagram model and a great coach. I mean, those exist, and I'm not necessarily pitting any of it against each other. I'm not better or worse. It's just a different approach, and I think one that is a little bit maybe off the mainstream. And I think for women, I mean, for everybody, working out to look a certain way is a huge motivating factor. But getting to a point where it was like, I don't need to show everybody like I look this way. Like I don't know. I would love some feedback. T-Flesh, what do you got nothing? Do you go to the gym?
I don't go to the gym, but I do look at a lot of pretty people and have my own insecurities.
Yeah.
But I think that you have something going on where I find confidence in somebody who doesn't feel like they need to show off. If I have a trainer or somebody I respect who doesn't come in with sweating abs and like ripped back or whatever, I honestly feel personally comfortable, but because I know that they can have results without it being a show and tell thing.
Right.
It's more about health, and that's where I come from.
It is tough though, because thank you. They're good points. And I first let me say too that I'm not without insecurity. Nobody is. And I would probably be lying if I said that wasn't even a little bit of the motivating factor. It's like, you are not allowed to judge me and how much I know based on if you think I look fit.
Right.
However, by that same token, I do think you should be cautious and wary of people who are selling you something that they don't use themselves. That's a red flag. So as a buyer, you should be aware if somebody's telling you to do something, but you are pretty sure that they're not putting their money where their mouth is or walking the walk. Or as Alyssa Edwards said, put your money where your fashion is, or something along that line in season 4 or 5 of RuPaul's Drag Race. Shout out to Alyssa Edwards. It's the truth. I do think that's, it's a good point, and it goes back to the symmetry. Like you do want somebody who doesn't have to walk around strutting and proving that they can do X, Y, and Z, but you also don't want somebody who is unwilling to do the things that they're asking you to do. So I try to walk that line where it's like, I do this, but I don't need to like walk around with my whole body out for you to know that I do this.
Right.
Right. But I do think that was something that I did before, and like I would think if I were to rewind back to 5 years ago, Madeline, and say, you keep lifting and you keep getting better and better, and you're gonna look better in 5 years than you do now. Like, isn't that cool? Like, what are you gonna wear?
Right.
She probably wouldn't say XXL thrift store T-shirts and hand-me-down shorts from your friend's brother.
Right. 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 I mean,
it's definitely like a non-mainstream way of going about dressing for work.
Right, but there's power in that.
I find it to be empowering as a woman or as a trainer or as whatever. And I don't know. I mean, do you feel judged on your appearance at work?
I would say absolutely, and it's definitely something that I think about a lot.
Yeah.
And I've been in Ironman shape and 30 pounds lighter, and there is some things you can get away with when you look that way. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, I feel like as soon as I open my mouth and the education comes, either you're on board with the education or you're not.
Right.
And I think I have enough clout that I can get by with it. But it is definitely a huge source of stress for me.
Yeah, I wonder if that's true of anybody in this kind of industry. I'm sure to some extent that it is. It's interesting because it's really at the end of the day a similar feeling of looking good or your physical appearance is currency, no matter who you are, really.
Right.
And we could get into a discussion about whether or not that's even more of a factor for women. I would maybe say that it is. But I'm trying to just like think back. Like I don't think that if I were like, let's just take the dressing for instance. Like if I were dressed the way I dress now, covered up and pretty modest compared to like, let's go back again, like 5 years where I was wearing, I don't know, like normal workout clothes, just short shorts and like a tank top and like whatever, but less than this. And like, talking to that stereotypical high school athlete guy, for instance, do I think he's going to listen to me more if I'm present day Madeline wearing boy clothes? No, I don't think so. Do you?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so. I don't think that guy's going to listen to anybody he doesn't want to listen to. He has already decided in his head that he knows he was a center forward,
right,
running back. I don't know what the positions are.
But like
football.
the not scantily clad, but like the less clothed, I think he would probably listen to her more.
Really? Why?
Because I would think that he would look at that as like an opportunity just to be in the same room, and like he would interact with that person. Like there would be like a what if factor there.
I think that like assumes a lot about like I mean, that varies from person to person so much. I mean, you could assign any psyche to
That's
that guy.
true.
You could say he doesn't want to listen to me just because I'm a woman and he's a misogynist. You could say I'm dressed in a sexy way and so he doesn't take me seriously. He only sees me as an object. You know what I mean? So you don't tell me how to lift this barbell, chica. Like, I can see what you're good for, and I'll let you know what I mean. Like, I mean, that's.
I suppose.
You could really assign any, which is another reason why I work so hard to not try to guess like what it is they're coming from or what it is that they're interpreting about me. It's just like, okay, cool, listen or don't. Go ahead and squat like that, bro.
Right.
It's your knee replacement.
Yeah. So the thing that brought on this whole discussion was, I saw on your Instagram, and I mentioned to you this a couple of times, a mention of a spiritual aspect to your training. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Totally. I think the spiritual is, I mean, it's really all kind of entwined with the mindset part of it. I mean, I find through my own experience and through working with others that you can't really, you have to have a purpose and like a great your why. Like if you don't have that and you're not in tune with that, then it's really easy to stray from your course. And like, so getting in tune with something that like gives you a purpose in a truly grander sense is like important. And reframing a lot of your ideas about like life and situations and interpretations, even something like, assuming that guy would just be happy to be in the room with me, and so he's going to listen. Like, I mean, you there's a lot of that I find you have to let go in order to pursue like true happiness or peace. And so that like spiritual component doesn't always look the same. I don't say, okay, here's the Bhagavad Gita, get to reading, or here's the Bible or whatever. I mean, like there's great stories. Religion to me is just storytelling, and that's the best way to learn is through stories. And so if religion is where you find it, or spirituality, whatever you want to call it, like there is a purpose to be found in stories like that and like applying it in your life. So like I said, it doesn't look the same for everybody, but all of my clients, especially my online clients, they all do it and they all approach it, male and female. Nobody ever pushes back. But it's important to identify like your North Star, right? If you don't know where to shoot, how can you aim?
Right.
How can you go towards something?
Right.
And so some people have a hard time identifying what they want or what their why is. Even I sometimes am like I said, Google, what is my why?
Right. Help me.
But I can't Google that. You have to figure it out. You have to just sit and think and do the work. And that's the most important work you can do, I think, in your life. And like, so that's my whole like body, mind, spirit. I mean, it really does all go together. And as you pursue whatever it is you want out of life, you got to have those things in check.
Right.
So,
so that's probably why you have such a huge following.
well, that's nice.
I think people probably gravitate towards that. I mean, having somebody point those types of things out and show you how to do that work, I could see how you would get some. And I find myself, I mean, you maybe would assume that I would be more like, I don't know, gentle with like my female clients, but I don't really find that to be the case. I've snapped at every single one of my clients. Shut up. Part of coaching is knowing when to.
Yeah, when to snap.
Yeah, or when to pull back and be tender.
Right.
I mean,
and I think especially when you're doing like that really kind of like deep work. I mean, it is deep and sometimes uncomfortable. There are moments of like softness with everybody that I work with, and there's moments of like tough love for everybody a little bit, and I try to balance it out across the board.
And you don't find that women or men have any tendencies? You made me wait for the show to answer that question, and here I am.
What was the question? The one you asked me yesterday?
Yeah.
Yeah, what was it exactly?
It was, do you feel like you have to coach women different?
Oh, yeah, and I didn't want to answer that because the answer to that question is, do you feel like you have to coach women differently?
Yeah. But
Which I asked you right away, and you said yes, and that's okay. I mean, I can appreciate the perspective. You know, I don't necessarily have to worry as much as you would about like the appropriate factor. I can recognize that I've got a little bit of an advantage there. And you see me, I'm a hands-on coach. I'm always respectful about it, but I'm going to be pushing my...
Pokey.
Yeah, I'm going to show you what to do.
I mean, if hands-on means pokey.
Yeah. So, you know, that might be a difference. Like, I don't necessarily think too much. I mean, it's always, sometimes it can be a little funny and awkward. Like, you're telling somebody to squeeze their butt cheeks. Like, that's not necessarily a non, you know, that's not a normal thing to tell anybody.
Right.
But I don't feel like any more awkward telling any of my clients to squeeze their butt cheeks.
Right. And I would never do it.
And okay.
I mean,
I can appreciate that.
Even a playful poke, like sometimes I've seen you do, it would never happen.
Yeah. You know what?
For me.
It was something that I also like really tried to kind of avoid for a long time and try to just be like, you know, activate your glutes or like squeeze it. And it's like, people don't know what the you're talking about.
Right.
Activate your glutes. Squeeze your butt cheeks,
right,
bro.
The approach that I have is to say, put your hand on your pockets.
Okay.
And then I would poke their pocket. Then I would poke their hand over their pocket.
Oh, okay.
This is what I'm trying to get you to feel.
Okay. Yeah. No, yeah. That's a good solution.
So
I'll just go right in for the poke.
That's how I get around doing that.
Yeah.
When you know.
That's a fair point. I'm poking if you're my client, you're getting poked. And like I'm not waiting for a hand on the pocket.
It's not like
I go like 2 or 3 fingers and I just jab right there. Turn that thing on.
I have seen that.
So, you know, I can recognize that, you know, there are definitely things that men and women are different. It's like we were talking about, the bulky, the question of like, am I going to get bulky? Like training women.
Right.
Which is another fun one because that is not something that happens accidentally. You don't just wake up accidentally bulky.
Right. You
have to work really, really, really hard, especially as a woman, to get muscles enough that you would be considered bulky. So that.
Like what?
What do you mean?
Give me a quick list of. Give me a quick list of what it would take for a woman to get bulky.
To get bulky?
Yeah.
Lifting heavy.
How often?
4 to 5 times a week. Serious rest days. Rest days are key. You're not allowed to not take rest days. And you gotta eat. You gotta eat the most. You gotta eat so much protein. You gotta eat so many calories.
Right. So that to me is the biggest difference. If you're gonna lift like you want to get bulky, you have to eat the way you want to get bulky.
Right.
And that's a crazy amount of protein. And
not only that, I mean, like the eating is hard. It's a lot of protein. Even if you're like somebody who already is like doesn't have a problem eating plenty,
right.
You know, which I would even put myself into that category at times. I have to check myself more often than I'd like to admit. I'm always hungry. So, getting enough protein, even if you're like someone who loves to eat, you're not going to just naturally eat the amount of protein typically that you would need to get actually bulky. But even beyond that, I mean, food is always key because it's like your whole entire day. It's not just the hour in the gym.
Right.
But you can't be for that hour in the gym. You're not just like putzing around. You're like lifting with your whole entire soul. Like you have to put every single thing you have into it to get that big. And so it's like if you're concerned about becoming bulky, then chances are you're probably not going to be sending it in the gym, and you're probably not going to get even close to bulky.
Or force feeding chicken breasts.
Right.
Because you need the protein to get that size.
But then, okay, so let's talk about this while we're having all these fun conversations.
Yeah.
There was a comment right when we were initially talking about like our first interview podcast together, where we were like kind of comparing, my lifting Madeline to yoga Madeline, and like the changes that I've seen in my body and all of that. For instance, I mean, I'm significantly bulkier than I was as a yogi. And it was actually, call him out. He made the comment. I said something, what did I say? Something about, love this. I said that I thought at that time when I was doing yoga that I was so jacked. It's like I thought that I was the most jacked. Like I would walk around flexing. I would just like, I was really feeling it. And I look back now as somebody who has actually lifted and I'm like, girl, you were like a waif. What do you mean jacked?
Right.
You made the comment, well, you were probably more attractive, but not more jacked, probably shredded or lean or something like that. I don't think it was something that you said. Don't give side eye. I don't think it was something you said.
I think we should play the tape back. That's not something I would say.
Something that was said. And I don't think it was said in any way to be like malicious or like it was just a throwaway. And I don't think it was any kind of commentary. I think it was just like a word or a sentence that just struck me because it is something. I mean, I don't even want to say as a woman because I don't know what it's like from the male perspective. I would say as a woman, there's a lot of pressure to look a certain way. The culture is always driving towards the beauty standard and like what is good and what is beautiful and what is desirable and what is wanted. And so like that exists whether we like it or not, accept it or not, adhere to it or not.
Right.
And I think that that's also something that maybe even subconsciously drives women away from like the weight room or whatever. Although I think it's getting a little bit more popular now. I have some hope, but
I would say it's the most popular ever
yeah, definitely gaining
for women to be okay underneath a heavy bar.
It's getting there for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are those cultural like standards or norms or hierarchies that kind of exist anyway. And so it really did get me thinking like women just, and maybe anybody, maybe this is men too. I don't know. I can't speak from that perspective, but getting into fitness, like with the impetus is to look the certain way. Like the driving factor, their why is to look a certain way. And that's not bad. It's a why, and it gets you in a position that will improve your life. And so that's all good.
Right.
But I think most people who then get into working out for whatever reason will then start to adapt like the principles. You can't avoid it. Like when you work out and you're healthy and you start doing that for yourself and you see the results and like you get hooked on that cycle of improvement.
Right.
And I think a lot of times, not every time, but oftentimes it kind of bleeds into the rest of your life. You start maximizing other areas or trying to, PR in other ways. Or that's, I think, the best way to apply fitness in your life is, how can I take this growth structure and apply it to like my relationships or my job or cleaning my house or I don't know, whatever it is. So like whatever it is that gets you in the gym is a good thing. But like the pressure to look good in a certain way and like desirable on women, I don't know. I see it. I feel it. I've been like, I don't want to say a victim to it, but I've drank the Kool-Aid a couple times, you know what I mean? And tried to be a certain way or what I thought was going to be the most beautiful. And then in my journey just kind of ended up landing on like, I don't know, it doesn't necessarily, whatever makes me feel good. And that's like what I try to tell my clients too. I mean, if it feels good to feel good. So whatever makes you feel good is what you should do. And sometimes like you can go too hard. I think women and men equally go too hard. Equally push themselves. Like I have to tell them to calm down more often than I have to tell them to speed up. Because I think people can get so caught up in like that they're not enough. Like, and I would say that I recognize it in my clients pretty equally. That feeling of like, if you're not doing 100, then you're doing 0. Which it doesn't necessarily have to be like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a good balance there.
Yeah.
Well, looks like a good natural place to stop.
Love it.
Can you give me a real quick sort of wrap up on what you think is important gender-wise from a coaching point of view or a training point of view? Crickets.
I mean, I would say that, like, from nothing. I mean, work on yourself. That's genderless.
Yeah.
That's
Which I'm I mean, it's really interesting to me. I didn't anticipate your answers today.
I am full of surprises.
Yeah, for sure. So what are you listening to these days? I know the last time you kind of shook the room with what you were listening to last
You
time.
know what? I'm going to give you a little credit today because you were playing DMX in the clinic the other day.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I can't stop listening to DMX.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So pumping me up.
Yeah. Yeah, my man Joe requested some DMX.
Oh, nice. Do you have any, would you wrap that up by saying that, sorry, I know you already did the music question. That's
Yeah.
like the end, but I'm just curious if you had a way that you would wrap up or encapsulate training genders.
What I learned from Madeline today is that maybe I'm going too hard on some of these archetype that like introspectively I maybe have to have a look at that.
Nice.
Because you're saying that you see things from a pretty even perspective, and I don't see it that way, and I want to investigate that a little more.
Okay.
And maybe that's just strictly coming from a male coach and a female coach, but I just might have to have a look at that a little bit different.
Nice.
Because sometimes as people, just human nature, you kind of see what you want to see, and I'm wondering, am I doing that? Am I wanting to see something different, and maybe that's influencing a bias, or is there actually a bias? And maybe there isn't that big of a difference, and maybe that gap is closing, 15 years ago, 30 years ago, the way that female athletes are portrayed, or women's national team soccer, and all those controversies. They want to be paid the same as the men. All of those things are probably actually changing the general perspective on what women are capable of. And I just remember distinctly my sister being held down so much, and I always felt like
How so?
Just like the things that she wanted to do, you can't do that because you're a girl. I just remember seeing that way more often than a person should. And, it could be my family, it could be Albuquerque, it could be, lots of other things. But, I just always felt like she was unnecessarily held down. And I've always been passionate about women reaching their goals more so than men, because I feel like there's a fight there that women fight. And
That's true.
I just have always been sort of aware of that and supportive of that and wanted to be a part of that. And I look around my gym and it's 70% female. 30% male. And I think that that is physical therapy specific somewhat, because I think women are, generally speaking, more willing to say there's a problem and seek help than men are. So there is a gender bias in physical therapy anyway.
Right.
But I also think that for whatever reason, I've always had a very heavy female patient load.
Yeah. I find that at the end of the day, so like what you're talking about is like the example with your sister. You saw her facing adversity and maybe undeserved and maybe biased and for whatever reason, but let's just classify it as adversity. And I think at the root of it, the spark of like what I work towards with anybody that I work with is empowering and educating them on how to overcome adversity. And at the end of the day, whatever the struggle is, overcoming that really opens up lots of avenues for you. If you have tools that help you over obstacles, then you can get over obstacles. And that practice is not a gendered practice. That's just a human practice. And so I approach my training from a human perspective.
Right.
And that's not to discount that, your sister saw some pushback that maybe was undeserved or whatever. And I do think that the system is improving and getting better. There's evidence of that. You said women are the most comfortable under a barbell ever. I don't know what your sister does, so I'm assuming that. But regardless, I would say that the people that I encounter and the people that I work with are coming to me to achieve goals and overcome adversity. And my recipe for fixing or, achieving those things is the same for everybody.
That's awesome. I'm really impressed with that.
Oh, thank you.
What
did you think I was going to say when I came on here? Men suck. Men to the back. Men to the back of the room, please.
I honestly didn't know. You wouldn't tell me.
Okay. Well, thanks for letting me maybe change your mind a little.
Yeah, for sure. I need that.
Cool.
Appreciate that. Episode 14. Trying to think of what we should call it.
Battle of the Sexes.
Gender.
Hang on.
Gender something. Something about gender. I wanted to talk about gender today.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you again for being on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
And that's a wrap on episode 14. Take it out, Trav.